Isabelle Barker, sports journalist and WSL expert from the Sun newspaper, is still with us. She came and gave us her thoughts about Fulham, and now she's here to break down the women's team. 10th in the WSL table, well beaten 4-0 away at Manchester City at the weekend. Not good either, because former West Ham manager Matt Beard, in his new job at Bristol City, got his first league win under his belt with a victory, which still leaves Bristol City bottom. But 3-0 they beat Brighton. Brighton did have a player sent off, but they were already 3-0 up by then. Bristol, it puts Bristol City now 2 points behind West Ham and Aston Villa. West Ham and Villa in 10th and 11th on 7 points, just the one team that goes down from the WSL. Bristol have played 12 to West Ham and Villa's 11, so the girls have got a chance to widen that gap again when they play, but not good stuff as far as the weekend goes and relegation goes for West Ham. Isabelle, earlier or most of this season, we've kind of been saying, not to worry about the relegation so much. We can still be looking up the table with those teams, Brighton and Birmingham, all within sort of touching distance for the girls. Change of manager, which I think the feeling on the podcast was that was due. That was a good decision to make. Olli Harder doing okay so far, getting his first win in the cup as well. But were us dismissing the chances of relegation? Were they premature, do you think, when with Bristol City getting that first win under Matt Beard? That's going to give him a huge boost of confidence. They seemed a bit like, to use a men's analogy, Derby County, the famous Derby County team in the Premier League. They were cannon fodder. They didn't have to worry about relegation. But was that premature, do you think?
Yeah, I think West Ham need to be worried now, because I think they're well and truly in the midst of a relegation scrap now. It's really weird because, as we were saying, West Ham women definitely needed a change of management, a kind of revamp. But what we've kind of seen happen since then is this kind of Matt Beard effect, where he's a real kind of people person, and he brought a lot of the new signings in, like Cho, the South Korea captain. And we've seen a lot of like two quite influential people in the team leave, like Alicia Lehman and Cho, the South Korea captain. So we've kind of seen, like, with him leaving, some of the players don't want to stick around anymore, and also that's probably more tied in with the terrible run of form. And so it just seems really worrying. It seems like, yes, a new manager's come in, you'd think it kind of injects a bit of life, but actually it's kind of done the opposite a bit. I think the players seem even less motivated to kind of fight there at West Ham, stay and get wins.
Well, you mentioned Alicia Lehman there. Lovely little segue. It saved me a job, that's for sure. She went on loan to Everton in the latest transfer window, and I didn't know what to make of that transfer, really. Can you shed any light on it? I wasn't sure whether that was one where they thought maybe the personality wasn't fitting under Ollie, and that she's got probably the most high profile, I would say, or certainly one of the highest profiles in that West Ham team. I don't know. I wasn't sure what to make of it, really. She hasn't been outstanding this season on the pitch either. Can you shed any light on that? Because I sort of thought I'd reserve judgment until I'd spoken to someone who could inform me a lot better than I managed to inform myself.
I think she's literally just chasing more ambition now. Everton are a team that could possibly, if they sharpen up a bit, could get a Champions League place, given that there's 3 teams going to the Champions League now, not just 2 in the women's game. I think that's what she's looking at. They've just been in an FA Cup final. I think she's bored at West Ham. And also, her and Matt they had their disagreements, but they were very close. And he viewed her as a real kind of senior member of the team. Often when he was making choices that would affect the whole team, he would consult Gilly, but also Alicia. So I think maybe that's played a part. Matt Beard's departure, she's not happy anymore. Also, her long-term partner, Ramona, she's playing for PSG, she's played for Chelsea. Alicia's probably like, I want a bit of that now. I want to be, possibly playing in Europe or, at the top end of the table, because West Ham have just slumped into a miserable state. And yeah, they are in a relegation scrap. I think Alicia Lehman, given her profile, doesn't want to be in a relegation battle with the likes of Bristol City and newly promoted Aston Villa.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I wasn't, again, do you think that's a sensible decision from West Ham's point of view to let her go?
No, but I don't know how the negotiations went. I know with Cho, someone was talking to me and they said that the tactics under Ollie just didn't suit her anymore.
Right.
She was kind of forced to play as a 6 when she's an 8, and Ollie's about running and pressing, and Cho's game was kind of built on her passing ability. So she moved to Spurs. That was a really good fit for her. So maybe it's also a tactical thing with Alicia as well. But as you say, I don't think it was a wise move to let either of those players go, because Cho also apparently had quite a big influence in the dressing room. She's a really experienced player. I think she's 32, so she's one of the more senior players that had a big influence on the dressing room, and also was always looking out for the younger players. And now she's gone. It feels like two big holes have kind of been left at West Ham, and it's like Olli Harder's like saying that he's seen a good response from the girls, good mental attitude, but it sort of seems like they just seem a bit deflated.
Yeah, yeah, it's peculiar. I mean, Ollie Harder lost to Tottenham in his first game in charge, the 1-0 defeat in WSL. And 1-0, you thought, okay, that's not too bad. Obviously, Tottenham close in the table. These things take time to change. 1-0 you'll take. Beat Durham comfortably 3-0 in the League Cup or the Conti Cup quarter final, which is set up the semi-final, of course, which is tomorrow, Wednesday night. West Ham away at Chelsea. That is going to be an extremely difficult game. But again, reaching a semi-final of the League Cup, you've got to take the positives as well as the negatives. So that's obviously a good achievement for the girls so far. That 4-0 defeat again at Manchester City at the beginning of the season, you'd have plugged that one as a defeat, wouldn't you? Whether West Ham are having a good season or not, going away to Manchester City is never easy. And after getting slapped 9-1 by Arsenal earlier in the season, to keep the score down was almost quite a bit of a relief. You know what I mean? But I think that, having watched the game on the weekend and seen the goals, all four of them came from West Ham's left-hand side. The first 3 goals were just crosses from the right-hand side, straightforward enough. So first of all, Maz Pacheco, who was playing at left-back, you've got to ask questions. How have you let 4, or the first 3 were crosses, the 4th one was a corner, but from that side as well. Massive questions needed asking. And in that left-back position, I think Man City had obviously...
Didn't she also fall over as well, I think?
That was for the 4th goal.
Yeah,
for the 4th goal. And, I mean, that was, whether you call that a mistake or not body positioning, it was, you can go
Ollie
it 2 ways.
But he needed to look at that tactically and possibly, it's not her fault maybe in that situation, but get reinforcements to help her out, because it clearly wasn't working either side of the break for them, really.
No, that's it. And like you say, the 4 goals were spread out across the 90 minutes fairly evenly. And again, it's hard to be too critical against a team like Manchester City.
Yeah.
But they're 3rd in the WSL now, 8 wins from their 12 games. They've only lost once. So, getting anything there was going to be a tall order. How do you see the rest of this? Or what did you make of that result first? Is it one of those where you think, whether they're in good form or bad, they were going to lose away at Manchester City?
I think you have to take that into consideration in the WSL, that there is this like chasm between City, Chelsea, Arsenal, even United now, and kind of everyone else in terms of funding, and obviously Everton coming up there as well. So you always have to take that into consideration. For me, it was just like the same problems rearing their ugly head again. It was like defensively just shirking their defensive duties every time, and set pieces, crosses, as you say, like not dealing with them. So it was disappointing to see that West Ham again shipping so many goals, when that has seemed to be kind of the reoccurring problem in every game, bar the Spurs one. That was a kind of positive turning point of it, even though it was just 1-0. But so it's like the same problems, which is the frustrating thing. You would have thought that they would have tried to kind of tackle them a bit. But it kind of just seems to have stayed the same, despite changing your manager and changing Matt Beard, who has been there for so long and had such a kind of big impact, that you would have thought they just look different at least. But it just seemed like the same old West Ham side. But then again, you do have to take into consideration the thousands of pounds difference between that is injected into both sides.
No, that is true, and we've mentioned it several times on this podcast how the women's game is starting to reflect the men's, isn't it? And it's where there's a fairly simple correlation between how much money is poured into a women's side and how much money is poured into the men's side correlates with, on the whole, where those teams end up in the table. Very similar things happening in the women's game. Of course, Manchester City, very big spenders on their women's side as well as their men's. There's no, it's no fluke that both of those teams are doing well in their respective tables. Isabel, let's look forward now, and two massive games really for completely different reasons before next week's podcast. So we've got Chelsea away in the semi-final of the League Cup, Wednesday night, 5:00 kickoff. Chelsea again, high flying at the moment in the league, already beat West Ham. They're top of the WSL. Chelsea unbeaten for the entire season. Emma Hayes on a staggering 33-game unbeaten run. We'll move on to Emma Hayes in a minute, being linked with the AFC Wimbledon men's team job at the moment, would become the first female in history to take charge of a senior men's football league side. So I'll ask you for your thoughts on that. But this game, Isabel, they haven't lost in the league for 33 games, Chelsea. Is there any way West Ham are getting through to the League Cup final?
Well, yeah, and those 33 games is over the stretch of, I think, 2 years, which is just crazy when you look at it like that.
Isn't it?
Yeah, but problem with a team like Chelsea is Emma Hayes has so much depth in her squad. She's got about, I think, at least 4 brilliant strikers in Olli Harder, Sam Kerr, Fran Kirby, Beth England. So with that depth, it's like teams can resist and like hold back for so long. But then Chelsea just eventually break them down because they've just got so much kind of horsepower behind them. It's a brilliant achievement to make it into the semi-finals anyway, though, for West Ham. And if they can hold on, and kind of the excitement of, I guess, being a League Cup semi-final, maybe will kind of give them a bit of momentum to kind of hold out till the end. But I just don't see it going any other way than Chelsea winning, just given how much strength they've got in their squad and the players that they can bring on and rest, etc.
And to be honest, you'd expect them to win the whole thing, wouldn't you? The other semi-final, West Ham were a bit unfortunate with the draw. The other semi-final is Championship Leicester against WSL strugglers Bristol City, or former strugglers. They're in the hottest form they've been in for a while, even though it is only one win. But yeah, Bristol and Leicester face off in the other semi-final tomorrow. So the winner of that game awaits in the final, which I think is being played at Watford Stadium, if I'm not wrong, Vicarage Road.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, yeah, it is an achievement to get to the semi-final of that competition, and one can only hope that West Ham and Olli Harder managed to pull a result out of, well, thin air, to be quite honest. But look, the other huge game, which is, to be honest, is far bigger and far more important from the club's perspective. It would be lovely to get to that final, of course, but West Ham at home to Bristol City on Sunday, 3:00 kickoff in Dagenham. What a game that is, and such a different complexion to it. The added subplot, of course, Matt Beard returning to his old team, and he's found his first win with Bristol City. West Ham having a little bit of a wobble. I mean, it's set up to be I sound like I'm on Sky Sports trying to big up a game between Chelsea and Man United that's inevitably going to end 0-0. But this is, as far as the bottom of the WSL table goes, it doesn't get any bigger, does it?
No, yeah. The result, Bristol's result against Brighton, literally threw the kind of relegation battle wide open, I guess, and considering West Ham's form as well. And as I was talking about that sort of Matt Beard effect, he is the type of manager that can kind of go into a team, and he is the manager that will make a difference, even though it might not be sustainable. It seems like Matt Beard is the type of manager that will get results quickly. Whether that will carry on throughout the season, I'm not sure. So I do think he's really kind of ignited a bit of fire into their bellies. And he's exactly what they needed. You know, he's direct. He's probably kind of shaken a bit of, I don't know, ruthlessness into them. So it'll be a really good game, actually. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think Olli Harder will be, I feel like he'll feel the pressure a bit because it's going up against Matt Beard. And the legacy he kind of left at West Ham Women, and like it's not really worked out for Ollie yet. So I think he'll be feeling the pressure on his shoulders, and it'll be a really interesting game to see.
Yeah, absolutely. A huge game for West Ham. A season definer. I don't want to be too tabloid in my declarations here, but I do. You can't be if this game isn't going to be, you know, one that could define a season. I think West Ham either move away from that and leave the relegation battle to Villa and Bristol City, or they're plunged right into the middle of it. Villa, sorry, who are level on points with West Ham, have got 2 winnable games as well, at home to Tottenham and away to Birmingham, are their next 2, and then they've got Man United and Brighton. So they've got 3 winnable fixtures out of
They've
their
just
next
got
4.
a new sort of manager, a weird situation going on there, but they've got a new manager come in who seems quite ruthless. So that might get some good results out of them. I don't know.
You never know. And look, Isabel, just quickly, then we'll ask you about the Emma Hayes thing before we let you go. But what's the score predictions from you? First of all, for Chelsea in the League Cup.
I think West Ham will be able to hold out, and then as soon as Chelsea get 1, I think they'll score about 4. So I think it'll be 4-1 Chelsea.
4-1 Chelsea.
It seems to happen. That's what Chelsea do. They kind of get held off until the end, and then once they get 1, they score them in about 30 seconds.
That is very true. So 4-1 to Chelsea in the League Cup final, and the big one, home to Bristol City on Sunday afternoon.
3-2 to West Ham. I think
3-2 to West Ham. Excellent. Well, that sounds like a exhilarating game to watch, and the result that West Ham fans will be after. Look, before we let you go, Isabel, it's been great to have you on for 2 sections on the We Are West Ham podcast this week. I can see now why you were texting me so relentlessly this morning asking to start, because you were clearly so excited to come back on the show. But the news that broke yesterday, Emma Hayes, the current Chelsea women's manager, is reportedly on the short list at the AFC Wimbledon men's team, alongside some other names like Ian Holloway, Joey Barton, Cardiff's Neil Harris was even mentioned, I think, which seemed a bizarre one to me. Morecambe's manager. There's a few sort of big, more Sol Campbell's on that list as well. There's a few big, well-known names in there, but you know, Emma only on the short list according to the reports that came out yesterday. Emma hasn't been contacted about the job yet. But it would be historic if she was to be appointed. There hasn't been a woman take charge of a senior football league men's team in history. Emma spoke in 2019 saying that she is confident it will happen one day. She's not sure when, and she thinks it would be a lower league side. If it's going to be anyone, we've mentioned it already, 33 games unbeaten at WSL level. If it's going to be anyone, surely it's going to be her.
Oh God, yeah. Like if anyone could do it, it would be Emma Hayes. Like not only has she done remarkable things with Chelsea women, but she's also managed to gain the trust of Roman Abramovich for 9 years. In that space of time, I think there's been about 8 Chelsea men's managers. She also, I think, didn't win a game during her first full season. So to keep Roman's trust, which we all know is quite a rare thing these days, I think is amazing. And how she's worked with the hierarchy of the club, you know, Marina, the kind of transfer guru, is like Emma's right hand girl, and then Bruce Spark, the chairman's her right hand man, left hand man. So I'm so bad to say, but I always go on podcasts and say sayings, and I listen back and they're wrong. Anyway, do you want
to have another go? You can have another. I'm not editing it out, but you can have another go if you like.
Nah, I'll leave it at that. Just leave it at that. But yeah, and she's really, really close with the chairman, Bruce Buck, and Marina, the transfer.
Her right leg man.
I always do that. Oh God. And yeah, and so it just shows how respected she is by huge figures within the men's game. So I think she can just build teams from scratch and kind of gain the trust of a club's hierarchy to kind of create something special and like a legacy and build something. But people were saying kind of like Emma Hayes doesn't need to consider Wimbledon. Like people are kind of saying that actually it's too below her. But I can see why people are reporting about it. I think it would be history. It would be making history. So I don't think it's supposed to be offensive to Emma to be like they've considered her. I think it's it's an amazing story.
No, to be quite honest with you, when you look at names like Joey Barton and Ian Holloway she's up against, people think, oh, because they're famous and they've been around football for a long time. But Ian Holloway didn't do much at Grimsby. It was a surprise when they appointed him and plucked him out of the abyss. He's just another one of those names I find that are just on the managerial merry-go-round. I think it would be not just from a social advancement point of view, those things are all great, and like you said there, it would be historic, which is why people report on it, but just as a refreshing attempt at trying something new. If it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out, and obviously there will be sort of greater ramifications if it didn't work out, because then it might put off teams from trying it again. On the flip side, as Emma said in the past, if it only takes one success like that, and all of a sudden clubs are doing it all the time, because as we know, success on the pitch and financial success is what matters more to these clubs. None of them, very, very few, if any of them at all, would be bothered about it being a woman in charge, would they? If Emma came in and done better and started winning games to 21st in League One at the moment, Wimbledon. If Emma comes in, keeps them up this season, and then, pushes on towards mid-table or the playoffs next year, excuse me, all of a sudden, everyone's thinking, blimey, that's worked really well. I'll have some of that. Next season's League One strugglers or League Two strugglers, they want to do the same. And then, like you say, the Championship, I think it's historic for the reasons you've mentioned, but football clubs don't care about that stuff, do they? You've seen at Chelsea, they don't care about sacking a club legend. Just like the same thing would work, I believe, if it guaranteed success on the pitch. It's just being the first one to risk it, isn't it? But in my opinion, it's no bigger risk than taking on an Ian Holloway or a Joey Barton, who haven't really done much for a long time, or haven't really been relevant anyway.
Yeah, I think she's a more like important person, an important figure, and better manager in the world of football. And she's also said, I don't know how recently this interview was, but she was kind of saying like she feels like it's her sort of duty to eventually maybe take up a managerial role in the men's game, for the reasons you said, to kind of like create a wave of other women doing it, or other clubs wanting to hire women. So I don't think she would. I think she will do it eventually, but as you say, I think she hasn't actually been contacted on it. And she's also said that she is obsessed with her employers at Chelsea. Like, she loves them so much that she didn't even want to talk about the Team GB job publicly, because she didn't want to disrespect her employers, because they give her so much, they support her so much. So I don't think, my view is that she's not going to take the job, but whether she's been in consideration for it, that could well be true for sure. I don't see why they wouldn't want Emma Hayes as their manager. She's amazing. She's an amazing leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think maybe, I don't know. I think certainly from a personal perspective, you'd want something like that to work out, wouldn't you? It'd be such a feel-good story.
Yeah,
you'd want something like that to work out. And I just think purely on a logistical semantics point of view, taking over a club for anyone, regardless of gender, form of footballing history, managerial record, whatever, it's commonly known that taking over a club midway through a season, especially one that's struggling, that is a big mantle to take on as your first. You'd want to give it a proper go, wouldn't you? And I think, if she was to take on a job like that, it'd be brilliant to see. But perhaps that's one where you take it at the end of the season to give yourself a transfer window and a pre-season, rather than going in and firefighting, and then if it doesn't work out as well as people hoped, 2 months down the line she gets sacked and the whole thing dies in a whimper. I think for the first one, it'd be good to see it like given a proper go.
You'd want to see a positive reaction as well. Like, I think Emma Hayes has very thick skin, but just the culture around how much footballers get trolled and stuff on social media, and Emma is on social media, you'd want it to be like a really positive reaction regardless, to kind of just encourage women to do these things, I guess. But I think you made a really good point there. Emma has built Chelsea up within 9 years. It's a long time. And I think when she took over, you couldn't even get Casey Stoney was the manager near the time. She said you couldn't even get a tracksuit at the club. Now they're playing Champions League football and play and sharing the men's training base. So Emma's played a part in that. And I think she obviously likes to build a kind of dynasty at the clubs that she's at. So yeah, maybe the timing wouldn't even suit her either.
Yeah, men's football obviously a little bit more cutthroat, as we've seen at Chelsea men's recently. But you know, the big question, of course, would be who Emma would appoint as a right shoulder man or a left knee woman, or
Don't, all
or
right. I've
what?
done this in the Fulhamish podcast. I said no smoke without cigar, but the
Oh
phrase
God!
is no smoke without fire, is it?
Yeah, or close but no cigar. You
Close
mix
to
up
no
too.
cigar, I mixed the two. Oh
No
God, I
smoke
just
without
shouldn't try
cigar.
them.
Left, right, knee, shoulder, elbow, eyebrow, men, women.
Oh,
No one really
I was
knows.
trying to be clever.
Yeah, trying to be clever. But look, Isabel, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on. We've covered you loads, two different segments: Fulham for the men's team, and then Chelsea and Bristol City coming up for the women's. You've been wonderful as ever. It's a delight to have you on. Thank you very much. We'll speak to you again later on in the season on the women's team. Obviously, West Ham and Fulham is probably the last time they're going to face each other this season. Fingers crossed it is a win for the Hammers. But thank you so much for coming on and